welcome to the Workshop Recorder. My name is Scott, and I figured since I was using a particular kit I'm working on to show you about primer and natural metal finishes, I'd talk about the kit itself. This is the AZ model Super Mystére B.2. It is a 1/72nd scale limited run kit, and I'm well enough into this kit where I can review it for you and let you know my thoughts on this kit. I didn't do any kind of documentation of the build really, but I can tell you now that if you follow the instructions, you're going to fall into some trouble. First of all, it's a difficult little kit as far as assembly, and that's because it's limited run. That means the parts don't fall together like a Tamiya kit. It has some significant fit issues. I can show you where you're going to have trouble. So, on the underwing surfaces, you have this panel that nestles into the upper panel just like on the Airfix kit. But you can see there's significant gaps there. I've chosen not to mess with that so much. I'm concerned with the upper surface, and this will be a model you view not on a mirror. So you're going to have trouble with that. You're going to have slight trouble with the wing to fuselage joint. It's a butt joint, but you can, with some planning and some careful cleanup of the parts, you can get a very nice joint there. Real nice, and I've just gone in and put some sprue goo on the gap so I can rescribe that panel line, and I've taped along here when I sanded down the sprue goo to protect the surrounding detail. So I've just got a very small little strip there that I've got to deal with. The fit on the upper surface is just fine. The engraving and the recessed detail is fantastic. That's the draw of this kit. That's one of the major draws for this kit. But the surface of the kit, especially if you're going to do natural metal, is a little bit grainy. It's a limited run, low pressure injection molded kit, and so the graininess is going to give you trouble. And I'll show you what that looks like. You can see the graininess, especially if you're going to do a natural metal finish, is going to demand some polishing and some primer. And I'm not entirely sure that that's going to work out so well given the graininess of the kit. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. You can see the profile of the kit lines and how they're pretty uniform. Actually, really nice scribing here. You can see that the rivets there are actually squares, and you can see the surface of the plastic is a little bit porous. And this is a limited run kit, so it's not going to take a lot to assemble it, but it will take a lot if you want to put a natural metal finish on it. You can see that grainy, porous finish on the surface, and this is a wing that's already been polished. This section that I'm showing you here in the light has already been sanded and polished, and it's still got that grainy, pitted surface. So this is where primer will help you out a lot. We're taking an up-close macro look at a kit wing, the surface there, and you can really see how primer is going to be necessary if we want to get this we want to get this kit in natural metal. And I'm not sure I'm gonna go to all that work just yet. I'm not sure that I want to go that far, because look, as you can see this, when you look up close, you can see how sanding really is a violent and destructive force that scours and gouges your model. And so to fill those holes, you've got to sand and polish, and to fill that surface graininess, you've got to prime, polish. And the more you sand, the more you reduce the surface here, the more you're going to reduce the depth of your panel lines. And you can see as that main panel line by those rivets begins to trail off where I've already sanded, you can see it gets shallower and shallower until it disappears. It's fairly difficult to keep your panel lines consistent when you're having to reduce a grainy surface like this. I mean, look at that. That's most of that section of the kit has not been touched, and you can see that the panel lines are uneven down there within them. The surface is grainy, and that's going to require a lot of work. So I do like that raised detail. Look at that raised rivet detail. It's unfortunate that the model is so nicely done in terms of detail and the effort that went into it, but then it's cast in such a way in which you can't really take advantage of all that designed detail. So I may end up just having to go ahead and do a camouflage version, a painted version of this model. because I don't know that I'm going to be able to put an effective natural metal on there. We'll see. We'll see what the primer does. What you're also going to discover is if you follow the instructions, the kit seems to indicate that you put the afterburner can on after you've assembled the fuselage and put the shroud. There's a shroud on top that's a separate part. If you do that, the afterburner can will fit right on there and nestle in just fine, as if it's supposed to go like that, but it will stand proud. And you can see, let me show you what I'm talking about. You can see on this aircraft that the afterburner can is actually not aligned with the shroud. This part right here that my pointer is on is a shroud that overlaps the actual afterburner can, which has kind of this bivalve directional thing, these vanes that are supposed to sit inside. And so you have to get those inside this shroud. They have to sit inward. If you follow the instructions, they stand proud by a good 4 or 5 millimeters, and it just doesn't look right. I found that out too late, so I had to cut the bottom half of the fuselage out to put that afterburner can in there, and I'm going to have to fill and putty that up, and it's just a hassle. So yeah, beware of that. You'll also notice on the bottom of this kit, the fuselage halves don't line up very well. You're going to have to fill and sand there and restore detail. It has a lot of potential as a kit, but there are some difficulties. The cockpit tub, you can't see it there, but it's resin cast. It's actually pretty nice, but there's no indication inside the fuselage where to put it, nothing to help you insert the thing and glue it in. So you got to fiddle with that and get it seated in there just right, and that's rather difficult. Also, the nose intake. Notorious on these nose intake aircraft is that they don't give you the trunk, and so there's no ducting, no trunk in there, and so it's just a big open area. And so what I've done is I've chosen to fill it in, take some sandpaper rolled up and smooth out the seam on the inside and paint the whole thing black. There is a circular disc you put in there so that you can't look and see through the aircraft. It as in limited run fashion, it doesn't fit very well, but it's sufficient. You can get in there and putty up everything if you need to. So yeah, it's a typical limited run kit, not really for beginners. If you try to put this together as a big beginner, it will frustrate you, but it will give you a challenge of your building skills. And if you have some basic building skills, you're not afraid to take a knife or a saw to a kit, and you're not afraid to rescribe some detail, and if you're not afraid to use various media like different kinds of glues and things, then this will be a pretty nice model once you're finished, at least from an overall perspective. Sitting on a display base with a nice paint job will give you a much better solution to having this in your collection than the Airfix kit will. The one thing this kit doesn't give you is drop tanks, and this is a very distinctive aircraft in terms of its deployment. You see it frequently in photos with drop tanks, and those drop tanks are peculiar. They have little finlets on the tail, and so you're gonna have to either scratch build those, source them elsewhere, or buy you an Airfix kit and use those drop tanks. I'm going to give a hand at scratch building these when I get to that point, if I ever do get to that point. I'm going to prime this thing up and see what natural metal looks like on there, and if the natural metal works, I'm going to do this scheme right here with the green squadron markings rather than the blue. There's also a version the Airfix kit gives you with the red squadron markings. It's all the same flight group, I believe. I'm not sure how the French Air Force was organized, but I think they're all part of the same group, just different squadrons, and that's why they have, just like an F-100 you see has the red, the yellow, and the blue chevrons and stuff, very similar. So yeah, nice aircraft. If my natural metal finish doesn't work, then I get to do a nice camouflage scheme, which is almost a Southeast Asia type scheme, but the French use different colors, so it's a little bit different. And yeah, it'd be a nice little model. So there you go. AZ models, 1/72 scale Super Mystére built by Dassault, and it's an interesting aircraft, very significant, and that's my review. Not a whole lot to give you, but I hope that you'll avoid some of the pitfalls of this kit now that I've encountered them. All right, well, thanks a lot. Subscribe to our channel and leave me a comment and hit that like button. I'd appreciate it, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.